Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the GothamChess Slow Run. This is episode number 16, but just in case you need a reminder, in the series, I'm playing on an authorized account on chess.com, rapid games going up the rating ladder. I have started at 400, and in this episode, we begin the final climb to 1,000. I'm a firm believer that literally everybody on the planet can reach 1,000 ELO, whether that be in rapid or in blitz. In rapid, it will be, let's say, easier because you actually can think through your moves, and in blitz, you actually have to rely on the clock and play faster. But regardless, if you haven't gotten there yet, you still can. It's just simply a matter of being a more diligent student, being a better loser, meaning when you lose, you don't get mad or frustrated or dejected. You just roll with the punches and keep on going. And so your New Year's resolution can be, among other things, getting to 1,000 if you haven't already. It's going to be a big year in chess. We've got the candidates in March. We have the World Championship coming up later this year. I'm going to be playing in a handful of tournaments as well. We have Chess for Babies being published in March, which I've talked about. You can get it for yourself in case you're a baby, or if you are expecting a baby, or if you know somebody who's expecting or has a baby, etc., etc. And then How to Win at Chess Next Level, my second book, the sequel to the first one, will come out. That'll probably be for around 1,000 to 1,600, 1,700 rated players. So very exciting times. Good year, to really immerse yourself in the world of chess, follow top events, improve. And we kick things off in the new year with a slow run episode. So, huge plans for Chessly. We're going to work on an app. We're in the process of finishing up a very fun holiday event where people won hoodies, and there's going to be a Guess the ELO episode just for the people on Chessly. So shout out to all of you participating. And here we go. I'm also recovering from holiday, influenza. So I'm just a little fatigued and have a little bit of a stuffy nose. D4. We haven't faced D4 in a minute. One of my favorite ways to play against this opening is I will show you how to play the King's Indian defense or the Peer's defense. This has been requested by a lot of people. It's the Peer's defense when there's e4 involved. I will show you how to play the King's Indian defense, which is an opening where you play knight f6, g6, bishop to g7, like this. And then when this next pawn comes out to try to attack your knight, you play the move d6. So these are your first four moves, and then you castle your king. I love this opening because it's a setup-based opening, meaning you can play it basically against any single setup that your opponent employs. And after you make these first five moves, the rest of the game begins, where you strike at the center, you develop these two pieces in some sort of fashion, you initiate some sort of trades. The positive of this opening is, like I said, it's setup based. You can get a similar looking position against basically anything that your opponent is going to play against you. The drawback of this opening is that it doesn't have a huge amount of space. You don't have as easy of a plan. And so as a pure beginner, I wouldn't necessarily recommend this for people, let's say, who are 600. And there's many, many ways to play this position. Preparing the move e5 or c5 is generally what is recommended. There is another approach here when this bishop comes out to g5. This is called the Smith-Morra variation. One of those approaches is to chase away the bishop. It's a little bit too advanced for my liking, but I will show you the move knight to a6, followed by the move c5 to defend this pawn with a knight. And knight to a6 was a setup, not exactly in this setup, but in others, that was played by the great Daniel Naroditsky, So it's a nice way to dedicate, at least throughout these slow runs, and play in a way that he would have liked. And obviously, taking like this is okay because the queen can take. The alternative was that in this position, my opponent would push the pawn or simply ignore it. In general, in the King's Indian, black is looking for expansions where possible, sometimes on the queen side, sometimes on the other side of the board. So now our knight has joined in on the party. One thing to keep in mind with a trade like this is for the more advanced folks, the opponent has opened up the queen. Another thing that has opened up with the opponent trading on c5 is my dark squared bishop. So in the long run, my King's Indian bishop on g7 is going to be putting a nice bit of pressure on this diagonal. I'm already looking at moves like knight fe4, which would immediately instigate a trade between the knight and the bishop, but furthermore open up my diagonal over here, and it would be a reason why taking on c5 from my opponent would have not been a good move. Now, another good piece of protocol here to follow as we play the slow run is, what about moving out the light squared bishop? That's also totally reasonable. I'm simply taking advantage of where my opponent has put the pieces so early and immediately coming in with this move knight e4. I already expect a blunder quite soon. It's not an easy position to hold together for white. The knight is a pure target. The bishop is a bit of a target, and I anticipated a blunder very, very soon, and the blunder immediately occurred. Because now not only will I be winning a pawn, I will also be forking and winning a rook. Now, I will have a huge amount of material advantage there. Oh goodness, that's just not it. This was an overreaction to this move, thinking that they would lose the rook, but it's better to lose the rook for a bishop than to just lose two pieces. So now one blunder followed another blunder, and what's funny is that I can actually take this pawn. How about this for a nice little tactic? This is an attraction tactic. It's a tactic where you pull a piece to a square, you attract it like a magnet, and then now I land a fork. Now, is bishop b2 forced? Is queen b2 forced? Absolutely not. But it's good to spot tactical resources like this one, which means I will be playing it. And listen, throughout this series, you guys argue this out in the comments amongst yourselves. Do you like if I just ruthlessly play all the best moves all the time, or do you want me to kind of show you what the best move is, but kind of give you what I think the 900 version of the situation would be, or the 1000 version of the situation? By the way, I could have taken this pawn as well, but I do like keeping the king in the center here. I think a nice direct attack on the king goes a long way here. Bishop to f5 attacks the rook. My opponent might take this pawn and just simply blunder the backwards knight move. Alternatively, yeah, they don't do that, but now I jump in with the knight, and we win this game within 15 moves in the King's Indian. And I mean, I called it. I said there was going to be a blunder quite quickly, you know. I just had a feeling that that the second the position got hot, even for a second, that the opponent would be dropping the plate. Now we're going to just pick up the rest of the pieces. I wouldn't even, you don't need to rush with a move like bishop takes. Look at this beautiful queen attack, just going directly for the king. And this shows you how vicious the King's Indian can be, really. Now let me finish this game off, and then we'll take this, and then we will analyze. The best move is probably queen to a2, which will be annoying because then the game will go on for some time. We can, of course, okay, well, they got close, but they did not stop the checkmate in the corner of the board. That makes 60 wins. 60 wins in the slow run, which is always very nice. A nice round number. Haven't lost or drawn just yet. Now, we should obviously analyze this, and we will in a moment. Now, one thing that I did say around here is that I was talking here, and I was saying that when the opponent plays b takes c3, and I play bishop takes, king f1, takes. Now, if I were to show you this position, this is what should have happened in the game. If I were to show you this position, and I said, who's winning? You would use what I've taught throughout this slow run of material, king safety, piece activity, pawn structure, and who has more space. And you would go like, okay, so black has 3 points of material. That's a lot. Who has a weaker king? If you had to say maybe black, because the queen is kind of at least pointing in this direction, and this king looks a little goofy, but we don't have anybody that can get over there. So maybe advantage white, but 3 points of material by far is a bigger advantage. Now, white does have more pieces, because we had to take the rook and everything. But overall, I mean, black is 3 points of material is really difficult to overcome. But at this point, you do have to be cognizant of this and understand that there is a very good chance the best move here is to play defensively, because if you don't, white goes bishop h6 and is going to checkmate you, or is going to win your rook. Which is why the best move in this position is for black to play f6. It's a little bit ugly, but these spikes disallow the white queen from getting closer, disallow the knight from getting any closer, and if the bishop comes here, you really have a choice. You can play rook f7 or rook e8. Both are totally acceptable. And after that, you can then play e5 and get your bishop out and get your queen out. And the way to win a position like this for black, in my opinion, would be try to trade the queens, because with no queen, white will never mate you, ever. And with queens, it's okay for black. It's totally reasonable, but white will still probably try to mate you. And, you know, if you trade the queens, like right now, it's minus 3.4, right? But what happens if we trade the queens? Like, what happens if, of course, this is not going to happen. I'm just saying queen b2, and then something like knight d7, queen b6, knight b6. So now the advantage gets a lot closer to, it is -4. It's worse for black, right? I mean, the situation is even worse for white, is what I'm trying to say. So it gets even worse in the advantage for black. And the more pieces you trade, the worse this is going to get. I mean, it's, you know, like you put your bishop, and then, you know, like now it's -4.1, and then you're going to take this pawn, and, you know, just don't hang your rook. So, King's Indian defense for black. The way to play this with white normally is to play the big center in the queen's pawn, d4, c4, e4. And then you castle, and this is called the classical main line. It's the position that has been played the most. And so from here, black has many, many choices. As I said, Danya liked to play knight a6 followed by the move c5. Followed by the move e5. Followed by the move e5. He always liked to play the move knight to a6 and then support it with an expansion in the center. The move e5, also very principled. There's c5, there's knight d7. There's another way to play this with developing the light-squared bishop to g4, which is kind of a nice little concept. And the point is, you trade the bishop, and then you bring this knight to d7, because the bishop would be no longer blocked. Let's say white castles. This knight to c6, targeting the center, and then something like pawn to e5. This type of King's Indian, where you trade off the light-squared bishop, because the result of this light-squared bishop is not particularly useful, right? And then you jump in, and you try to get to c5 and to b6, and maybe even sometimes use your e and f pawns together. This is one of the neat ways of playing the King's Indian. But there are many, you know, and it's more like an introduction and for you to kind of go on your way. If you want to play this setup against e4, d4, it's okay. It's just called the Peertz defense. And there's no guarantee that white has to spend time moving the third pawn. So you get a position like this. The drawback of the Peertz defense is that there are a lot of aggressive options for white, like immediately trying to trade your bishop or trying to overwhelm you with the pawns. This is called the Austrian attack. This is one of the most principled and strongest ways to play against this opening. So yeah, there's a lot of aggressive stuff that you can do. In the King's Indian, you saw in this game, you know, I went out with my knight. I could have played c5 as well and already initiated various tactics with my bishop, my knight, etc. You know, knight, look at this, pawn takes d6. I could have went for knight e4 with an attack like this and like this and like this. But this would have been very dangerous because I would have lost a bunch of pawns, and you have to have a decent nervous system for that. But maybe we'll play one more if we have the opportunity. Okay, we won. We are climbing to 1,000. Let us open up with e4, and maybe we play a gambit. Let's see if we can get some sort of gambit going. We played a King's Indian defense, and for the record, you can actually play the King's Indian attack as well. You can play it with both colors. Knight f3, g3, bishop g2, castle, followed by this move d3. And, okay, my opponent is not making a move. We give them 10 more seconds. There we go. I was going to say what we can do here is we can play a gambit with d4. This is called the center game, or the Goring Gambit. Pawn takes d4, c3. They're also, you know, in symmetrical king's pawn games like this, there's a... Okay, well, my opponent didn't accept the gambit. That happens. There's a lot of openings where they take the pawn, and then, you know, that fuels your rapid development. I'm actually going to keep this here. Of course I can take, but I'm going to go knight f3, and now it's a Scotch game, so now we're actually playing a Scotch. It's the same as if I played e4, e5, knight f3, knight c6, d4, right? So we have knight f3 played on the third move. My opponent took, and now I'm going to play this move c3. So I'm playing the Goring Gambit. I could have played this gambit on the previous move as well. My opponent takes my gambit. Now I can take now, or I can even play the triple gambit. So this is like they take 1, 2, and 3 pawns, potentially. Now if my opponent, of course, knows everything, then I will lose. No, I won't lose. I'll just have a very slightly worse position. But the risk here that black runs of giving you these 2 long diagonal snipers is substantial. I mean, it's a substantial risk. We can just castle here, by the way. We don't even... Of course I can take, but the whole purpose of this was to do, you know, was to go like this. And now black is going to potentially run into a lot of trouble with these bishops. First of all, most people here are just going to play knight f6. Knight f6 is very dangerous because I might play the move e5. And by might, I mean absolutely will. Because now with this knight facing my pawn, this is a really, really bad situation for a knight in general in the center because it can just be kind of whacked around. But the thing is, this interaction between pawn and knight in the middle on the first move of the game is okay. On like the 8th move of the game is not okay because I've already castled and I already have a ton of things developed. And another benefit of sacrificing all of these pawns is that my diagonals are open, my straightaways are open. So for instance, the very natural move knight to e4, I think just completely loses the game. This move should also probably lose the game because I have an attack on f7 and I'm looking at different ways to get it. Although knight g5 doesn't work, which is unfortunate because my opponent would actually just take. So let's think of a way to continue the attack here, if we have one. It's a surprisingly resilient move. I thought I would just like win immediately here. My opponent wants to castle on the next move. I can stop that by like sacrificing, you know, a bishop ruthlessly. I do not necessarily think that the king takes and then I'm not really sure what I'm doing actually. So I'm not super convinced by this move. My intuition is telling me I should move my knight and then I should go for this knight. That's what it, because if I attack the knight, it's just going to jump into my position. So I have a feeling I should maybe move my knight to d4. Now in a game here, I would maybe play a little slower, but I don't have too much time to play slower. So I'm going to play knight to d4. And the idea of this move is that I'm opening up a queen attack against this knight. And I think, yeah, but this just can't work. This just can't work. Surely. Knight takes e5. I get it. You counterattack my bishop, but your king is in the middle. And throughout this slow run, we have seen what happens if the king is in the middle. It's going to be bad news. In fact, I already see how it doesn't work. Although it is a bit challenging, you know, and this is why tactics are just so important. Like having good tactical vision here, just doing your checklist. And I said in the introduction, you know, in rapid chess, you have more time to think. Hey, in this position, if you think and you use the checklist, you find a really nice move. You know, right now you look at this, you go, my bishop's hanging. You go, do I have a check? Queen f7, no. Rook e1. Rook e1, they take your rook. So a lot of you here would just think, I don't have a check. You do. Queen, not e5, but queen e2. And this is the risk of keeping a king in the middle of the board, is that you are always susceptible to stuff. Actually, Danya used to say, LPDO, loose pieces drop off. Pretty sure he used to say that. Loose pieces drop off. These are loose pieces, which means they are susceptible to tactics on the other side of the board because nothing is defending them. Now, there is a world in which the knight was going to be able to come back and play defense. That can happen. You know, you save 2 pieces at the same time, but not here. You know, when the knight took on e5, you see how my alarm bells went off? I was like, yeah, hold on a minute. There are just 4 weak pieces in the center, and now I will take on c4. My opponent here should probably play something like a d5, you know, getting this piece into the game. I think we can just start developing here. We haven't finished up our development. Knight to f5 is also not a terrible move. Looks very aggressive, goes to the king. But black will just move the bishop or play some other move. And so for that reason, look, I haven't gotten my other pieces a turn. They need a turn. So you'll see me, if the position doesn't demand deep insight, I will just bring pieces to the center. That's what I'm going to do. Look. My position is just improving. Like now my rook is in the middle, right? d5 is just the loss of a pawn. That's just a miscalculation because I just take the pawn. So my opponent here just miscounted. Tactical mistakes happen at 900 as well, but rarer. This move loses by force. But do you see it? Not so simple. Again, a lot of you would think pawn attacking knight. Well, I'm up material, so I might as well trade. I don't blame you, but you can actually take this pawn. And now I will. And you tell me in the comments, do you like me playing moves like knight takes c6, or do you prefer I kind of show you, etc. And then I don't want this to be purely smurfing and beating up 900s who would never see these things. That's not the point of this. But some people get frustrated. Anyway, you all let me know. I think there's a nice balance we can strike. Look, this works. Why does this work? Because this is a very forcing move. The most forcing move I have in this position is knight takes bishop check, because I get a bishop and it's a check. Knight takes pawn attacks the queen, which is why it's a very forcing move. Furthermore, it opens up the dark squared bishop to see this bishop. And when I take on f6 next, it's really bad, because then my rook is going to see the queen. So my rook will see the queen as a result of the knight moving. The knight takes the bishop, defended by the bishop, as a result of my knight moving. The only thing not guaranteed here was that move. Like, maybe black could have done something else. But after knight takes f6, black is now going to lose a queen. End the game. And seeing tactics like this, kind of like through the shrub, like using a machete to, chop it all down, that is something that certainly develops in the 4 digits. That is not really... And now bishop takes... That is not something that develops in the 900s, but what should develop in the 900s is this position. Within 10 seconds, you should be able to identify how you're going to win this game. If I asked you, how are you going to win this game? And if you say, well, I trade the rook and the bishop and I go into an endgame, yes, I get it. I get it. You're very smart. Thank you, Magnus. No, we're going to go checkmate on the dark squares. That's what we're going to do. And what you're going to notice is when this rook takes my pawn, I don't have to even give a check. Or it didn't take my pawn. I don't even have to take the rook. I don't have to. Look. Checkmate net. This rook and bishop can't do anything to me. Checkmate net of queen and bishop on the dark squares. Black king has absolutely nowhere to run. And the game ends in 3 moves. You need to be efficient. When you have a winning position, you need to win it. The longer you allow your opponent to survive, all of a sudden they're going to get confidence that you suck. You do not know how to win off, finish the game. And this is the most efficient way to just chop, chop, chop. And the game ends. Don't take the bishop, obviously. Queen g7 is a checkmate. Now, I've introduced a few more opening ideas in this slow run because the openings really do not matter. You could play any opening that you like. Although some, in my opinion, are more effective, like the Vienna. So in this game, I played the Scotch game, the Goring Gambit. In this position, this technically is the Danish Gambit. This is what it's called. With knight f3, knight c6, it's called the Goring Gambit, but it can become the exact same thing by developing all the pieces. And normally in this position, we would take. Black might play knight to f6. Knight to f6 is almost always a mistake in gambits against e4 because you immediately attack the knight. And when the knight starts running around, you have several ways here, but always you can defend with the queen and then kick out the knight. And when the knight goes there, you simply are taking it. Now, black might try to get a little bit of counterplay here against you, but what's funny is that it doesn't even work. This is just not good. There's all sorts of counterattacks against the opponent. If they go knight to e7, Even a move like rook h2 traps both of their pieces forever because your next move is bishop h4 and just taking the knight, or anything, really. So these gambits where you open up the center for your pieces like this, very dangerous. In fact, look at the evaluation. It's 0.4 despite black having a 2-pawn advantage. That means black is in severe danger. Severe. White is better despite this being the position. And here, what did I do? I went e5. You know, I played the move e5. My opponent played knight h5. And here, knight d4, not the best move. Not the best move, but I tried to apply my logic to it. The best move in this position was actually just like playing it safe, like knight d2. You have enough time. Black would castle, and then you bring the second knight, and you basically are just kind of galloping over here. You're trying to attack. These bishops point directly at the king's castled position, and even though white is just completely down 2 pawns, no questions asked, white just maintains an advantage. I decided to play something a little bit more concrete. The best move for my opponent here was knight f4, just moving the knight out of danger and trying to reposition it to the e6 square where it would defend the position very nicely. And if that happened, I would have been very impressed. Yeah, my opponent instead grabbed a pawn in the center and the alarm bells went off. So many hanging pieces. Queen e2 check. And by the way, the best move in this position, you know how I found queen e2 with a fork? That's not even the best move. The best move in this position is the amazing knight to f5. Giving up the bishop on b2 completely. Because now you play knight takes g7 check, king to f8, and the very simple queen h6. And you create this threat against the king. And if the king keeps running, you threaten mate and to win the queen with knight f6. Just 2 pieces is all white needs. How instructive is this? And this is all because black did not develop their pieces in time. They just didn't, they didn't have any time to move anything. I mean, they went knight c6, knight e5, knight c4, knight b2, bishop b4. Everything else stayed the same in the back rank. And shows you the power of these center game gambits with giving up several pawns. Very dangerous, very fun, but, potentially dangerous it could be dangerous for you, if you mishandle the position. Maybe we'll get 2 back-to-back. Let's see, because e4, e5 is the most common. Okay, c5. The same gambit applies here, by the way. This is just called the Smith-Morra. Against the Sicilian defense, this is called the Smith-Morra gambit. I'm giving up 2 pawns. Now, the best thing against the Smith-Morra is not to give up 3 of them. And I will show you why later. It's because black never moved this pawn. And if you put your bishop on c4, black can play e6. Right? So we take back. We are now in a Smith-Morra gambit. This is a dreadful move. Dreadful move. It's not understanding the demands of the position. And if my opponent plays b5, they might just lose. They might just straight up lose the game to tactics on the f7 square in the future. Okay, there you go. Now you actually see, this is better, actually. This is better understanding of the position. We will just keep developing. We now have 3 pieces in the game. Black only has, 0, frankly. We slide back to b3. All normal, relatively. And now we castle. Every move, we bringing another piece into the game. And in the Sicilian defense in particular, especially in the Gambit style Sicilians, which is obviously what we are playing, there is this thing, there's an amazing thing called the Trojan horse. So the Trojan horse in the Sicilian defense is the knight that can go to the d5 square. And if the sacrifice is accepted, with the king in the center, a monstrous attack begins on black. Now, if it's not accepted, well, then we need to go and attack the dark squares. That is basically what we have to do. So, for example, I will play knight to d5. Now, this is a very, very, very bold and aggressive thing to do. But in the Sicilian, and especially in Gambit Sicilians, when you have castled already, and the opponent, look, nobody has developed near the opponent's king. So my opponent takes. We take with the pawn. This might be counterintuitive because you think, wait a minute, couldn't you have taken with the queen and then checkmated? Yeah, but they're not stupid. This, on the other hand, pawn takes d5. And this is, look at what's about to happen. This is about to be really, really ugly because there are no ways. Hey, remember last game? We had to look for checks. Remember how there was queen e2 check, forking the king and the knight on c4? How about queen e1, forking the king and the knight on a5? Now, it doesn't quite work the same in this position because the queen is defending the knight. But that's the type of board vision I need you to develop as you watch the slow run. Rook e1 works because, look, d6. And suddenly, black is really gasping for air here. The Sicilian Trojan horse, you know? Black can trade this and maybe can trade this as well. I mean, you could take with the queen or you could take with the pawn. I don't actually know which one is better, if I'm being honest. Maybe taking with the queen is good. Kind of because we go target f7. Let's just do it. But black here is in severe trouble. Dare I say, probably just totally lost already, because here's what's going to happen. I'm going to take the knight on the next move, and when the bishop takes, the queen b6 actually is a good move. When I take, the bishop is not going to be able to move, and the king is not going to be able to move because the king has to stay protecting the bishop. So a very, very unfortunate position here. I was just thinking if maybe I had something even better, but I'm just going to take the knight. I'm going to keep it very, very simple. I'm not really sure what my opponent is thinking about, if I'm being honest. They have to take back. Okay. Now, I do have a good position. I would love to keep applying pressure to this bishop. Have to figure out how to do that. PP on the PP, what they say. Bishop to g5 here looks natural. But of course, black will just play f6. Do we care about that if black gets to play f6? Maybe not. Okay, let's go bishop g5. This is the only move. Then the question becomes, can I sacrifice material? Like, should I just go straight into the position? I don't think so. I don't think so. Maybe now I can go bishop to e3, but that blocks my rook. I don't like that. Let's just go bishop to f4. So they still cannot castle. The way they could get out of this is to move the king one square. That is possible. That is possible. But we'll see if they find it. And of course, even if they do move the king, well, then they move the king, right? Then king is not going to castle. King is going to be stuck either in the center or blocking out that rook. Now, I did play a gambit. I did play the Smith-Morra gambit, so I'm actually down a pawn, although it doesn't really feel like it. And this is, of course, black's best piece overall because I don't have a light-squared bishop. That bishop is providing some annoyances for me. Hey, doesn't queen b4 just like kind of win the game? Queen b4 just straight up like win immediately. Queen b4, or yeah. Of course, what I'm talking about is the pin. There is a pin. And right, but now I thought I can take and play bishop d6, or just play bishop d6. Bishop d6, queen b4. I even have rook e7 immediately. I don't actually know which one is better. I am perplexed. I think bishop d6 straight away is even better. I don't think I'm missing anything. Tough, spoiled for choice. Okay, let's play the fancy move. Let's play bishop d6. So, due to the pin, I am now threatening rook takes e7 check first and foremost. And I'm, of course, threatening the queen. If the queen takes, so I can take this and then go back. I can also take here, take. The only question is, do I lose my bishop there somehow? And the answer is probably not, but it could happen. So I'm going to go here. And now the pressure on the pin piece is fatal. Even if they go d6, I just take it. And that shows you the power of the Trojan horse and keeping the king in the center. My opponent did not quite anticipate the attack onto their piece. And to be honest with you, I am not sure a pure 900 would have seen this either. By the way, I do think that after bishop takes, you could take, but just to show you, you have the luxury to also play this move. The black bishop on e7 is not going anywhere. Now, of course, we should take with the rook, and this game will not be won with a thunderous checkmate like last time, but it will be won. It will be won with a grinding endgame. Ideally, we just trade the rooks. You really, in these endgames, want to play the position where you have the biggest advantage, the biggest difference with the opponent, and that would be the bishop. And the things that put up the most resistance for black by far are the rooks. Now, you also could just hunt this king down with your rooks. So what I mean by that is you can bring your rook to the middle, and then you can, you can start to king g2, rook g1, go for the king. Not an easy position to play with 450 on the clock, I have to tell you. Even here, a lot of people would get very confused here. You would think, oh, he's coming down here. Oh, he's coming down here. Yes, but you have an extra bishop, so let's put it to use. So my opponent should put two rooks. Oh, that's actually a very good move. I didn't, honestly, I didn't even think about that move, to be honest. Honestly, to be honest. Oh, look, I have an option to trade the rooks. I'm going to do that. Of course I'm going to do that, right? Defended by my bishop. One less rook for black means a whole lot less counterplay to worry about. Now, black should not trade the rooks. Black should not trade the rooks. Shouldn't do that. Now, here I can sneak my bishop over here. Chess is also about coordinating your pieces. Bishop f8 is a really nasty little move. Make sure there's no back rank checkmate. King is very nice and snuggled on the g2 square. Checks in the endgame do not matter. Checkmate matters. But Levy, what if I blunder a fork? Well, don't blunder a fork, stupid. We can take this with a check. Right? Take this with a check. Now we take this as well. We're eating as many pawns as possible. They're going to take this pawn. Now we move this pawn out of danger. Chess is a simple game. They're going to think this is a fork. I'm going to go here. Hopefully they don't blunder the rook in one move. They blundered the rook in one move. We have a bishop. You gotta... Yeah, that was of course a huge mistake by my opponent. But it was already over. Now, let's go back to the beginning. So I just played the same style of gambit, giving up the d and the c pawn against the e5 and the c5 positions. I have not done this yet in the slow run. Now you have two new openings. Goring Gambit, Danish Gambit. This is called the Smith-Morra. Smith-Morra is a very powerful opening. It is dangerous. It is not easy to play against with the black pieces. Very, very tricky opening. And leads to some very nice attacking positions. The best way to play against it with black is to play knight c6, e6, and then just play uber solid. Actually, the way my opponent played with a6 was not bad. You just basically put up a bunch of spikes and don't let the opponent into the position. What you do not want to do is, play on the side for too long. Although, look, the way my opponent actually played it, the computer was like, hey, your position is pretty good. It's minus 0.5. It's exactly what you would want, knight to c6. So the way that they played their opening was actually very, very decent. But then here, I played the Trojan horse. I was castled. They were several moves away from castling. And I went knight d5. And knight d5 is a knight that should not be accepted. But if it is not accepted, if the opponent had played knight to f6, I would have immediately pinned the knight, justifying the position of this piece. And then, before you know it, look at this. My knight chopped off a very powerful defender, and now the black king is open. The black king's not going to go over there. So my knight actually swooped in on a move where it shouldn't have even been able to stand and did some damage to the position. Or, if the opponent did something like this, look at this, bishop e3, and now I'm coming into b6. I should have never had any access to the b6 square. It was set up that I wouldn't get there, right? So taking, though, is even worse. It is now +2 for white with rook e1 and d6. My opponent went here, I gave a check, and this position is absolutely crushing for white because black just never makes it out of the center of the board. Very instructive. Trojan horse. Knight to d5, and then some dark squared bishop play. Very instructive. That was cool. I had a fun time. Let's finish off with one more game. I like to make these about 40 minutes. Hopefully it's not a 25-minute battle. D4. What did I play in the previous game? I remember what I played. Let's go Dutch defense. D4, F5. I played King's Indian. Dutch defense against D4, and frankly, everything that's not E4. The Dutch is a very, very nice opening. Somehow my 900 rated opponent knows that this is the best move, which is just sickening, to be honest. Let's play a Stonewall Dutch with D5 and C6, the favorite. I wouldn't say the favorite, but an opening that Magnus Carlsen uses quite a bit. This is the Stonewall Dutch. You set up everything on a light square. You build a brick wall in the middle of the board. Already my opponent's knight on c3, very useless. Not doing anything. Hitting rocks. Just, it should have been back there. In the Dutch defense, the d and c pawns go together very nicely. I'm going to put my bishop on d6, like this. Then I'm going to play knight to d7. I'm going to castle. And then, of course, I will be jumping into the e4 square, where I have excellent support for my knight. Now, the way my opponent has played this opening is obviously they put their fianchetto, they put a bishop here. But if they don't do that, in a lot of Stonewalls, you have very, very strong attacking chances as well on that side of the board. So now, this is, of course, blocking in the bishop is just not, it's not great. I'm jumping in with my knight. I'm stonewalling. Knight is coming into the e4 square very nicely. And of course, you take with a pawn. I mean, first of all, you get connect 4, but also you open up the rook. Now we have a rook sniping the opponent's kingside position. If the knight comes to e5, I don't really want to give up the bishop for the knight, but I do want to win a pawn. And the first thing that I notice here is that, hey, how is my opponent going to defend this pawn? How are they going to do that? Because if they play the move pawn to f4, I have en passant. Which is not something, you know, if you don't remember that in a game, you're not going to see stuff like this. So, also, I got to get this bishop into the game, which you can, it just takes a little bit of time. Or b6 and bishop a6, sniping the super, super, super long diagonal from a6 to f1, just taking away some squares, right? Queen d4, yes, I was just about to say there is this move, but I was just going to play queen g5 here. And if f4, passant. Yeah, but I don't have to acknowledge this. I can just take on e5. And this position is very, very strong for black. White has one bit of counterplay I'm very slightly annoyed by. By the way, if takes, I'm going to open my bishop. Hello, 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 hello. Look who just woke up, baby. Anyway, the annoying piece of counterplay here is that. That is exactly what it is. Bishop is coming to b2. Now you have to worry about the ghosts of getting checkmated. Fortunately, I don't think it's that dangerous. But it is a thing. Now, knight f3 check looks very juicy. Another move that looks quite appetizing is the absurd bishop to h3. The idea of bishop to h3 is that if the bishop takes, I have a fork. Let's see if my opponent blunders that. This would be quite nice. But obviously, even bishop g4 is good. And of course, this is the last remaining defender of the king, you know? Okay, my opponent didn't fall for it. But I can bring my rook, defending my knight, and I'm resetting up the idea. The real way to win this position, of course, is to win it on the light squares. Is to win it by removing the light square defender of the king, and then playing something like queen h5, or queen f5, or queen g4, or knight f3. Just make sure you do not blunder checkmate. So it would go a long way for me to just make sure I can actually move my knight and my queen so that there are no checkmates. Because this was very well played by white. And if you're looking for something like knight to d3 to trade, honestly, that's probably also fine. As you get stronger, you will realize that this bishop is actually not as useful as it seems. It certainly looks nice, but ooh. Did we forget that that was... What? Okay. I mean, I'll take it. I probably didn't deserve it, but I'll take... Okay, well, that's the end of the game. What just happened? My opponent just, like, didn't take the sacrifice, and then like, super took it, and I guess just forgot about the fork. Okay. By the way, it was the best move, funny enough. So, look. This is the Stonewall Dutch. Another very fun opening, where generally the knight on c3 is poorly placed. The best way to play the Stonewall Dutch for white is to try to trade the dark square bishop. That's the best way. Because that leaves me with a very, very, very ugly bishop. And ultimately, I have to maneuver this bishop somewhere to try to trade it, or I have to play b6, bishop a6, etc., things like that. What you don't want to do is allow me to completely dominate the center of the board. If you play really passively in the Stonewall Dutch, as the as the person playing with black, I immediately take over the center. And once I take over the center, I can launch kingside attack with my pawns. I can put my knights there in the middle. I can put my bishops very active, and I just completely overrun you. And here, my opponent very quickly just like lost the pawn and had a bishop, light square bishop staring into 4 pawns and everything, and just not a comfortable position at all for white. We really swarmed, we really pounced. It felt like the play was quite natural. I felt quite sharp in this episode. I don't know, you let me know in the comments. I felt like I anticipated a lot of what my opponents were gonna do in an instructive way and sort of broke it down. King's Indian, fun opening. Stonewall, fun opening. Gambits with white, where you give up d4, c3 for quick, rapid development. The Trojan horse. You learned like 10 things in this video. Maybe we do a big summary, at the end every single time. And the King's Indian, attacking early and, giving up a rook for a bishop is better than just being down a piece, evaluating a position. So many things that we did in this episode. That second game, king in the center, always looking for checks, not just purely reacting to the opponent's threats. A lot of pressure on the pin piece, king in the middle. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff. That's all I have for you today. As always, you know where to find me if you want to improve your chess beyond the YouTube channel. If you're a baby, Chess for Babies, How to Win a Chess 1, How to Win a Chess Next Level, dropping fall of 2026. Chessly, got a lot of courses, 70 and counting. You can unlock access to all of them. The app we're building, we're working on it. We'll have a new holiday event for you starting in February. That should be a lot of fun. And that's all. See you for more regular chess content very, very soon. And by that I mean tomorrow, because I post basically every day. Get out of here.